Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf on a gloriously sunny afternoon. Don't worry, I haven't broken down. The Harley is still being heroic, but I thought I'd just peel off on the side of this road, on this back road, and show you this road, this route, which I'm going to ride now, and it's probably one of my little favourite local riding routes as well. I'm going to take you on a lot of back roads and just see how far I get, and have a little natter on the way through. So, as you know, over the last few weeks, I've been talking predominantly about the Harley and the Sport Glide and all the joys and all the woes, and I'm gonna continue to do so. But you know, as well as take you on these rides, my favourite rides, you know, it's also about showing you the best aspects of this bike. And the best aspect is its rideability. It's not only the way it looks, it's just the way it rides. And let's not forget, I mean, well, for me, you know, a bike has got to ride properly, and this certainly does. I think it's one of the best riding Harleys out there. I think it's light enough to be nimble enough in the bends. It sticks to the road. You point it in the right direction and it will hold that line. You know, it's got a good low center of gravity as well, so you feel planted on the road. It's actually pretty decent on loose surface, even going off-road as well. Taking it on a few trails, it actually looks half decent. Yeah, the trails are hard and compact, of course, but you don't feel as if you're wobbling all over the place. It actually feels pretty good. And I know a few people who've actually ridden this off-road as well have agreed with me, or they've come across lots of loose gravel on the road and they said, yeah, it actually handles. On the wet, yeah, it's still a little bit tricky. As long as you keep it upright, perpendicular to the road, it's absolutely fine, and you're very conservative with the throttle, it actually holds okay. But that's more of a tyre issue than a bike issue. But look, it's just a great bike to ride, and I think that's what you've always got to expect from this bike. You know, it's how it rides, and you know, looks on a bike can be changed, can't they? If you look at all my bike reviews, I always talk about the standard bike, the stock bike, because any bike can be changed, especially Harleys, because let's face it, that's what you do with them. You know, you change them, you modify them to fit you as a rider. Even these, I mean, I'm still got it in the stock configuration, but I do plan to have higher bars. I do plan to possibly change that seat, especially for comfort, not only for me, but for you know, an adult pillion as well. You know, it's also about changing the exhaust tone as well. You know, maybe getting a stage 1 for a bit of performance. You can change anything on a bike, and that's down to personal preference. But when it comes to a stock bike, any bike, this is more than a match than any other bike. And I'm not just talking about Harleys, actually. I'm talking about a lot of other bikes as well. Yeah, it hasn't got performance of, you know, sports bikes, of course, like that. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares if it's got the same performance or not? It's enough. It's more than enough, you know, for any kind of road riding anyway. Right, anyway, enough of me gassing. Best I just get on that bike, go down the road, and see how far we get. Catch you on the other side. Right, the open road awaits. Oh, I do love getting on these back roads here. Nobody else on them. Check behind the mirrors, you can see a cyclist coming. There we go, on we go. Beauty. Lovely. Right, so out on the road, and as I say, this video I just wanted to talk about the rideability of this bike, and it just gets better and better. You know, I'm not comparing this Harley to other Harleys actually, because you know, you could be here all day comparing this bike to other bikes and other Harleys, because at the end of the day it comes down to your personal preference, doesn't it, and what you think is a good riding bike. But I'm going to compare this to other bikes in general. So what I'm going to talk about is how stable this bike is. How stable is this Harley? How stable is it? you know, on the road, in the bends. Now, the stability comes from lots of different things. You know, the way the geometry is set up, the way its rake is, you know, set, its trail is set, all these kind of things. Obviously, you can have wheel alignment, it's all going to be set anyway, but that standard geometry doesn't change whether you got high handlebars and all that kind of stuff, or a different seat. So that stability stays the same. However, the way you're sat on the bike as well, and where your center of mass, where the center of your weight is located on the bike, directly affects the center of mass, the center of weight of the whole bike in general. So if I lean forward, then that shifts my weight forward. So let's say, for example, that you're riding down the motorway on the highway and you get a bit of what they call a tank slapper. You know, you start to lose a bit of steering on the front and it becomes uncontrollable. Well, that's down to excessive weight on the rear and higher speeds, too high a speed and excessive weight on the rear. So what you need to do, you need to roll off the throttle, but also lean forward, bring your weight forward, you see, so you actually get weight on the front tire. But the stability of this bike, because you're low slung, you're in the seat and you're low, it makes it really suitable for off-road riding as well, would you believe? Off-road riding, you know, these big adventure bikes, the problem with them, that they're too heavy, which is the same as this bike. This Harley is too heavy for off-road riding, but they're too tall as well. So there's a lot, you got high weight up high, and that creates a high turning moment, a moment high, which makes it quite unstable. So you have to be really good on the bike to make them decent off-road bikes. So let's say if you get a trail bike or an enduro bike off-road, they still might be quite tall, but they're a lot lighter, so you compensate for that. So the ideal scenario is that you've got a light bike and also it's relatively low slung, and that will make it really the most suitable to off-road riding. So if you want to get over obstacles, let's say, or you want to go into serious off-road, then a really low slung, low bike with, you know, lots of, you know, oodles of power, let's say, is the best way. And there's only one bike that does that, and that's a trials bike. And there's a reason why they're so brilliant at getting over obstacles, because of that very reason. So you compare that to this bike here. That's when I talk about stability. It's not only about its geometry, it's also about how the weight is distributed on the bike. Okay, so, you know, when you talk about, you know, different Harleys and everything, the reason why they're so great in a straight line, and they're usually quite comfortable, well, one is because of the suspension. It's going to be sort of, you know, a softer suspension, but also because they usually have a longer wheelbase, and the rake and trail are set up to make it a longer wheelbase as well, so therefore it's better in a straight line. It has better gyroscopic stability going a straight line. Conversely, it doesn't make them very good going around a bend. So once you start tweaking, you know, the geometry a little bit, then you can seriously improve a bike in the bends. That's what they've done with the Softails. That's what they've done with this Sport Glide. They've made it so it actually goes round a bend now, especially in the dry. You know, it really will go round a bend. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to hoon it round a bend, and it doesn't mean that you have to go, you know, like as if you're driving Miss Daisy at the same time. But you know, you can have confidence that this bike will do what it's supposed to do in a bend. So it's part of the way the bike is set up. It's part of it is the rider and the ergonomics of the rider. It's the low seating position that brings the center of mass down. That's what makes this bike very stable. Now, you could say the same about other Harleys, and you could say the same about other bikes, but I'm talking about this Sport Glide in particular. So when you have a combination of all these factors, Let me turn right here. When you have a combination of all these factors, that's when you start to get not only a good bike, but you also get a stable bike. Then you want to think, right, okay, well, I want to go away for the weekend, or I want to go to a bike rally or something. Then you start thinking, okay, well, am I going to feel confident riding this bike onto a field somewhere or down a dirt track, you know, to get to the rally site, you know, that kind of thing. Well, the great thing about these sort of bikes, and most Harleys are like this, in that they're so low slung and the seat is low as well, that it's easy for you to put your feet down. And I'm not just talking, you know, tippy-toeing your feet. I'm actually talking about getting your full foot planted on the ground, like this right now here, like that. Getting your full foot planted. And when you've got that, you've got more stability. So let's say you're really not sure about the gravel or the rocks or whatever, small rocks that you're riding over, you can actually put your feet down. Now, I would always say this when I was doing my off-road riding, a lot of off-road riding with the big adventure bikes, to say, a lot of people say you've got to stand up on the pegs and all that kind of stuff, which is, I'll tell you what, that is absolute nonsense. And that's the reason why people fall off their bikes all the time, because they listen to all these people telling you, oh, you've got to stand up on the pegs. No, sometimes you stand up on the pegs and that gives you a better option, but a lot of the time, if you're not sure, get your feet on the floor and really slow down, you know, as if you're crawling along as opposed to riding. That's what makes, you know, that's what you can improve your stability. But because the seat is so low on this bike, it makes that option really easy for you as well, you see. Anyway, right, let me just turn this way here as well. So look, I mean, I love this bike for so many different reasons, and you know, in the recent weeks I've been talking about how much I love this bike more and more, and there are so many things which I like about it. There's so many things that I love about it, and there's so many things that I thought I wouldn't like about it, but actually don't bother me at all. It's just a great bike. All round, it's just a great bike. And I think when I looked at Harleys, I thought, right, can I ride this thing? Is it going to be my kind of bike? Because let's not forget, it doesn't matter if I'm a Harley fan or not. Don't ever make the mistake of buying a bike just because it's a particular make, whether it's a Harley, whether it's a Suzuki, a Triumph, whatever. You know, don't ever do that. Don't ever buy a bike that you think just looks good standing when you're stood away from it. The whole point of picking a bike, you pick a bike that's right for you, and you pick a bike that fits you, or that you can modify slightly so that it fits better. But don't ever pick a bike that, you know, that you don't fit. It's like somebody who's really short, let's say, you know, 5 foot, something like that, and they go on a bike that's really suited for a 6 foot person. They shouldn't be riding it. It's wrong. You know, they're going to come unstuck really quickly, and it's the same. And it comes back down to that stability in the ride, stability at slow speed, stability if you have to put your feet down, you know. Oh cool, that's a cool old building. Right, anyway, let me see where I can go here. But I suppose this is what this video is about, really, just talking about the stability of not bikes in general, where you think you can take your bike, but also the stability, the rideability of this bike. If you want to open it up and go faster, you can. If you want to poodle around, you can. And I tell you what, this reminds me, and I know you're going to think I'm daft here, I know you're going to laugh at me, but this bike, this Harley Sport Glide, reminds me of another bike that I had, and when I first started to ride it, and I thought, oh, I'm not sure if this is going to be suited to me, but it turned out to be one of the best bikes I've ever ridden. And that is, would you believe, that's a ZZR, it's Kawasaki ZZR 1400, which is an ultimate speed rocket, right? I used to shoot runways with that, doing 180 miles an hour. I used to love that bike. But it was so stable at slow speeds, so stable, so planted to the ground, to the road rather, that it just made it a joy to ride at higher speed or at slow speed. And that's what I'm talking about on this bike. At higher speed, at slow speed, you feel as if you are stuck to the road. Doesn't matter, you know, if you're on a bend, in a straight. And that's where I judge. That's where you get your confidence from on any bike, isn't it? Now, I test ride lots of bikes, or especially when I'm going to buy a bike, I don't just go look at one bike. In fact, I look at a bike that I want to buy, then I go purposely out of my way to pick a bike that I wouldn't necessarily want to ride, and I compare and contrast. And you know, and I'm very open with salesmen at dealerships. I say, look, I'm looking at this bike, I'm not sure if I want it, I want to go and test ride, are you going to let me ride it? And if they don't, it's their loss. But if they do, then you never know, my opinions might change, and I might go and buy their bike instead. But that's what I do, you know, I fully investigate whether a bike is right for me. Yeah, so, look. Oh, look at this lovely long straight here. Beautiful. Oh my God. Oi, oi, oi. Beauty. Ho, ho, ho. You see what I mean? It just by it being so stable, it just does not move at all. There's no kind of flexing, there's no wobbling about. And I implore you, if you're thinking about a new bike, to consider this. Consider not its looks, not the way you feel about it, not whether you've got a connection with it before you've ridden it. I implore you to consider how stable this bike is and how it fits you as a rider. That's the most important thing. Everything else is sugarcoating, everything else is superfluous, it doesn't matter. Consider, is it rideable, is it stable, does it fit you, do you fit the bike? Is your reach for the handlebars, the pegs, are you comfortable on the bike? Take it for an extended run and have a look. Ask the dealer, can you have it for the whole day? Maybe come to some arrangement where you could pay for it maybe for a whole weekend. That might be unheard of, but look, this is what I'm talking about with you know, picking a bike that you're going to be happy with for a long time. You're going to be safe on, you're going to be confident on, and you're going to be riding and enjoying it, enjoying that ride. Anyway, enough of me preaching. Yeah, preach me, preach. Yeah, enough of that. Listen, I'm just going to go and ride a little bit more, enjoy this glorious afternoon, have a bit of fun on this bike. I hope you found that useful, I hope you enjoyed that. Please like, share and subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Check out the website, as I always say. Lots more coming up, lots more info coming up on the website, and on check out the Patreon site as well. Lots more exclusive content coming there as well. Right, catch you on the next video, whenever that is. Ta-da now, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. Woohoo!